At this point, I have the distinct privilege of introducing Ed Archuleta. He is the organizer of this event, and this was really his brainchild. He developed the idea, he came to the utility, I know he talked to UTEP as well, and said, I think it's time for us to have a meeting, a summit on water issues on the border. And there has been tremendous interest from speakers, from sponsors, from participants. We actually had to turn away participants because we have a 250-seat auditorium, and once we hit about 260 or 270, we actually had to tell people, I'm sorry, we're full. So you all made it in, so that's good. Back to Ed, I wanted to mention a couple of things. He currently serves as the Director of Water Initiatives at UTEP and leads two centers that are focused on water resources. But he has a long, distinguished career at El Paso Water, the utility. When he arrived in the early 90s, there was talk that El Paso could run out of water. And he pioneered many of the innovations that you'll hear about in the course of this conference. For a more detailed bio, I encourage you to look at the program. We put the bios in the back of the program so that we could keep our introductions brief. And with that, I'd like to introduce Ed Archuleta.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Lisa, for the kind introduction. I can assure you that everything that I've ever done was done with the help of a lot of people, a lot of people that supported the ideas and the strategies. So thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful event. This is the Olympics of water on the border. We've lit the flame, so we're ready to get started. We're a little bit late in starting, but maybe we can catch up. But we haven't had a crowd this big, actually, since the desalination plant was dedicated over 10 years ago. So it's a delightful, this facility has been widely used by the utility, and we're glad that this event can be held here today. I just want to give special thanks to all of our distinguished speakers that are here, that are participating. We have speakers from Brownsville to Tijuana, representing the whole U.S.-Mexico border. And please take time to look through the program. As Lisa said, the bios are there. We've asked our facilitators to have kind of short introductions and not lengthy ones in order to preserve some time, because you can always look at their bios in the program. I've mentioned before when we started this program, this conference, that water is the most important item on the U.S.-Mexico border. Despite all the rhetoric about building border walls and also immigration issues, those of you that are in water know that water is the most important issue. And we're going to learn about that as people talk about the demographics, talk about climate change, talk about the progress that's been made since NAFTA was formed in 1994. So there's been a lot of progress, but obviously a lot of progress remains. You're well aware that our population is shifting to the southwest in areas that have diminishing water supplies, and so we have to prepare for that. You're going to hear about what's been done by the United States and Mexico, thanks to IBWC and SELA taking the lead in a major agreement on the Colorado River. And I think that I'm told that there is ongoing discussions that you'll hear about that maybe this can be implemented on the Rio Grande. What we're hoping for you to learn from this conference is maybe learn some of the strategies that have been implemented successfully, some of the ones that are being researched, and others that are being discussed, so that we actually do something about the problems and not just discuss them and not just carry on the work, but actually people go back. We're going to hear in a few minutes from the CEO of the North American Development Bank that's funded hundreds of millions of projects, and I'm sure they'd like to learn from some of the ideas that are presented here that will be implemented in border communities so that we can continue to have a robust and a very economically viable border region. So with that, those introductions, I'd like to thank Lisa Rosendorf, Cristina Montoya, Ana Padilla, Gretchen Byram, and Gilbert Anaya from IBWC, who worked with me on the planning of this conference, and also Water PR, who handled the registration and some of the logistics. So with that, Let me now turn over to our first two speakers this morning. I'm going to briefly introduce both and then ask them one to come up one at a time. First of all, another individual that needs no introduction is John Ballou. John is the president and CEO of El Paso Water. He actually was at El Paso Water when I was hired in 1989. He started as a young engineer, chemical engineer, working in the laboratory, fresh from Texas A&M, and he's worked his way up. He's a fine gentleman. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's a great manager of the water utility, and I'm glad that he succeeded me as a CEO and president of El Paso Water. Then another gentleman that I've known for 9 years, since he's been the commissioner of SILA, which is the companion agency of the International Boundary and Water Commission, is Roberto Fernando Salmon Castello. He has done an excellent job, in my opinion, in working with Mr. Ed Dracena from IBWC and with the U.S. counterpart in implementing a number of historic projects along the U.S.-Mexico border. He actually has a degree from the University of Arizona and has a bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Arizona. And so we're very pleased to have the caliber of people like Mr. Dracena and Mr. Salmon to lead the U.S.-Mexico border issue. So with that, let me ask John to come up and then Mr. Salmon. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ed, and welcome everybody to the Tech H2O. This is our what we refer to as the Learning Center. We have more than 10,000 people run through here every year, most of them kids. We're educating the next generation of water consumers about the Chihuahuan Desert and the need for conservation and the sources of water here in the area. So this facility, if you haven't been here before, was really the brainchild of Mr. Archuleta. And we have right next door is the desalination plant. And this facility together is a functioning campus where we produce water and also educate our consumers. So one of the important things that distinguishes the Kay Bailey Hutchison plant from other desal plants, primarily those on the coast, is the idea of the disposal of the concentrate that's produced as a byproduct of treatment. So this is the largest inland desalination plant, period. And that distinction is important because here we can't just dispose of the concentrate back into the ocean. We dispose of it through injection wells. And that's really the key to this facility being here at this particular location. We have the resource available. We have a place that we can do the injection of the brine. But for the purposes of this conference, we really appreciate all the partners who have helped us out. As Mr. Archuleta mentioned, the International Boundary and Water Commission is a key partner in this. They're the frontline organization for U.S.-Mexico border relations, especially when it comes to water. So we thank them very much. Thank you, Commissioner Dracena, for being here as well. We'd also like to thank the Bureau of Reclamation for participating in this conference as well. The Bureau of Reclamation is one of the key federal agencies that deals with water here in this region, especially the regulation of the river. And I'd also like to thank NADBank, the North American Development Bank, another excellent international organization that ensures seamless cooperation between the United States and Mexico in many different areas. And lastly, I'd like to thank Borderplex for being a key sponsor of this event. Borderplex, for those of you who don't know, is the key regional economic development organization in this area, and that includes not only El Paso, but southern New Mexico and Juarez and Chihuahua as well. So we thank you, Susan, especially for coming. So all these partnerships are very important when it comes to water, because as Mr. Archuleta mentions, the water does not respect international boundaries, and so it's very important to have cooperation in dealing with this key resource. One of the things that you'll be hearing about throughout this conference is these partnerships that develop, partnerships between utilities and universities especially. There's a lot of key work that needs to be done that continues to happen here at the K. Bailey Hutchison plant, primarily research done for the disposal of concentrate. Concentrate management in terms of desal is one of the number one issues that we have, and the partnerships between the utilities such as El Paso Water Utilities and universities, especially such as UTEP and the School College of Engineering, is very important to solve those problems and to make this technology something that can be transportable. And that's another key partner with this cooperation is the Bureau of Reclamation, as I mentioned, because they have this facility that many of you went to yesterday. So this triangle of relationships between utility, universities, and the Bureau of Reclamation is key to solving many of these issues. And we like to think of ourselves as a utility that's progressive and always exploring new ideas, new solutions to problems, new solutions in terms of treatment, in terms of water resource management, in terms of the knowledge of the water resources, which includes aquifer management and modeling of the aquifer. And when we talk about cooperation between the United States and Mexico, one of the things that we do very well is we have a groundwater model for the Hueca Bolson and the Mesilla Bolson as well, that also transitions the international boundary. So through the International Boundary and Water Commission, we're able to share that data and share the results of that model to help both of our nations better manage the water resources. So with that, I welcome you to tour the facility during the lunch break and just explore. We have a great area primarily for kids right across the hall, but I'd like for you to check that out as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Salmon.
Good morning to everyone. I'm going to take advantage of that we have a translation service, and I'm going to say my remarks in Spanish. Buenos días. Primero que nada quiero hacer un reconocimiento y también quiero felicitar a Ed Archuleta, a la Universidad de Texas en El Paso, a El Paso Water, a nuestros colegas y compañeros de la IBWC, comisionado Drusina, Nat Bank, ¿dónde está Alex Hinojosa? Por organizar esta conferencia cumbre sobre un tema que considero que es de vital importancia, no solamente para los que habitamos la zona fronteriza, sino también para todos aquellos que habitan los estados que conforman las cuencas transfronterizas que son compartidas en nuestros dos países, particularmente las de los ríos Tijuana, Río Colorado y Río Bravo. Al dar inicio a este evento, recordamos que hace algunos años, particularmente en marzo del 2011, para ser precisos, la SILA organizó en San Antonio una conferencia binacional enfocada a los temas del saneamiento fronterizo y la calidad del agua. Un año después, en las dos ciudades de El Paso y Juárez, organizamos una cumbre binacional de recursos hídricos en la frontera. Y es a raíz de estas experiencias que entendemos la necesidad de tener este tipo de reuniones binacionales, porque se fortalece la relación entre los dos países, entre los estados y entre los municipios fronterizos, así como también se crean redes o se expanden las redes ya existentes entre profesionales, académicos y científicos que atienden y estudian los diversos aspectos del agua en la frontera. Asimismo, con reuniones binacionales como las que vamos a tener estos 2 días, se abren oportunidades para intercambiar tecnologías, ideas y opiniones para la colaboración, estudio e investigación científica que nos permitan enfrentar juntos la problemática relacionada con el agua. En la Comisión Internacional de Límites de Aguas, con casi 130 años de antigüedad y con 20 oficinas alrededor en las principales ciudades de la frontera, sabemos y entendemos que difícilmente vamos a encontrar una situación relacionada con el agua que no tenga implicaciones transfronterizas. Por tal motivo es importante y necesario que busquemos que el tema del agua sea un tema que nos una como países y no algo que nos separe. Yo espero, por lo tanto, que en estos 2 días de conferencias y discusiones emerjan los elementos que promuevan este trabajo binacional conjunto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, John and Roberto, for your kind introductory remarks. When we started planning this conference, one of the first individuals that I talked to is our next speaker, Mr. Alex Hinojosa. I have known Mr. Alex Hinojosa for probably 25 years. He started his career at SAS, the San Antonio Water System, and then later on he moved into the private sector, working for different financial institutions as a financial advisor, primarily to municipal governments, and I worked with him and met with him during that period of time. In 2011, he took a job at the North American Development Bank as the assistant managing director, and most recently has been elevated to the CEO, the managing director of NAD Bank. He has a bachelor's degree from St. Mary's University and a master's degree from the University of Texas San Antonio. Like I said, he is very well qualified for the position that he has since 1994. And I remember when NAFTA was signed in 1994, the early days of the Border Environment Cooperation Commission that did the planning, working with NAD Bank. Numerous projects have been implemented, several here in the El Paso Juarez area. So we're very pleased that not only are they an underwriting sponsor, that he's been able to take time to be here this morning to share with us some of the work that NAD Bank has done and some of the work that remains, which is significant. So with that, please welcome Mr. Alex Hinojosa.
Good morning, everyone. As was said, my name is Alex Hinojosa, and I am the Managing Director for the North American Development Bank. For those of you who really don't know, the good thing is that we're a bank. The bad thing is that we are a bank. And often, and I say that because in the early years of the NAD Bank, this is prior to my time, we had a decade of where we really were not doing much lending. We were basically administering a lot of EPA grants, and this came about because, as we all know right now in the news, the NAFTA renegotiation is big, and in the original NAFTA negotiation, there were side agreements, and in the side agreements, the NAD Bank was formed, but those side agreements were for the environment and water quality, air quality, energy efficiency were among topics of great interest to the folks who were working on NAFTA. You may recall H. Ross Perot, those of you who are a little bit older, that he said the great big sucking sound of companies that are going to be going to the border and they're going to destroy the environment. So who can save the day? The NADBank. We can come up with finance improvements to the infrastructures, improvements to that will help with the environment, and that's what we do. The last 9 years, we have started lending, and I'm glad to say that that's about the time when I came on board, because I'm a banker and I had come from, as Ed said, investment banking here in the United States. In fact, I'm very happy to say that that this facility had a federal assistance, military assistance, but we also had some bond issues that we did, and I had the chance to participate in those bond issues at the time. In the area of water, and I said, we do air quality paving. one of these, okay. We do air quality, so we do a lot of paving and other things. We do energy efficiency for lighting and other things, renewable energy. We have, leaving modesty aside, we kickstarted the renewable energy in Mexico 6 years ago, where no wind, utility-size wind farm had been done outside of Oaxaca. And we started that, here in the state of Tamaulipas in helping get that done. So a lot of these things. But in water specifically, in 1994, when the NADBank was formed, about 22% of the water, wastewater was being treated in Mexico. Colonias had, on the U.S. side, had very, very bad situation where there was untreated areas, unserviced areas. Now, as we stand, I think we have made a great dent in the water being treated in Mexico. In the northern states, is closer to the 88-89%, similar to what the U.S. is. They also have septic tanks and other things, but to bring it up to that level, and we were just a part of it. Obviously, the states, CONAGUA from federal government, they all had were part of the situation. But the funds that the EPA was bringing in and we were matching and so on had a great effect, and I'm happy to say that we are much better off. Okay, now what do? We lend, we provide some grants, and we provide technical assistance. The technical assistance, and I've seen a few of you out there that have been through the process of the mini management degree for water management. And I think that has had great benefit for a lot of communities in teaching people how to do capital investment, budgeting, rate setting, public input, governance, et cetera. And I think that's been of great success. But things change and times change and the environment changes and things are catching up with us. And one of the things when I talked to Mr. Archuleta here, I said, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about the things I'm seeing that need attention. And those are the items that the NADBank, along with the IBWC and the SILA, are having to deal with as we move along. The issues of the complete cycle of water have to be thought out, and in the next panel you'll see a number of gentlemen who they cover the gamut of what is involved in the complete water cycle. But you can look at the water cycle from so many different points of view. The cycle of management of the infrastructure, the cycle of water itself, rain, stormwater, residual water, et cetera. And those are where the bits and pieces of things that we have to deal with. The United States and Mexico shared a number of waterways. Here and 1,000 miles to the Gulf Coast, we have the Rio Grande that separates the two, and it's a shared waterway. In the West Coast, we have rivers that flow north, and they flow into California and Arizona, and those are a little bit trickier. So, what are the issues we're seeing? Drought. We're seeing how aquifers are being managed, and I think that those are issues that we're going to have to deal with. And I've told Mr. Drusina and Mr. Salmon a number of times that, well, at some point in time, we're going to have to include groundwater as part of the mandate for those two commissions, or that commission. So, but of course, we have to study the heck out of it before we get into any sort of compact or treaty. Aging infrastructure, it's killing us. I'll give you an example. The city of Tijuana, 2.5 million, is essentially the whole watershed of the Tijuana River, and the Tijuana River goes north into Imperial Beach and San Diego. Whenever there is a main break, sewer main break, a spill, or just a heavy rain event, there's a lot of trash and breaks and things that occur, and it goes into the coasts of Imperial Beach, Coronado, and so on. And that's a real problem. We've been dealing with it in trying to patch here and there, but and now I feel good in that we are getting into management of long-term management for the utilities along the way, because the city of Tijuana, the water utility, we worked with them in coming up with a long-term plan of capital investments. Those of you who are in water utilities, you say, what? No, yes, we did not have a long-term plan of water investments and infrastructure investments. So that is something that's a good thing. Non-point pollution. The process of the EPA for water quality and stormwater, I mean, it got started back in the early 90s. I was one that got a chance to implement a stormwater fee, a stormwater plan for the city of San Antonio. And it provides a lot of benefit and a lot of value. The Nad Bank right now is trying to deal with pollution that comes in through the shared waterways. Acuña, Laredo, when it rains, stuff comes off the streets, trash bags and water bottles and oil, and shoot, we even get tires sometimes that go into the rivers. But those are the things that we are trying to address, and I'm out there knocking on the doors of our congressman to try to give us some grant money for some things. I know that our bankers, can go out there and lend to these communities to develop the stormwater system. They're not going to pay for filtration systems or things of that nature, and that's where the grant money comes in. So I'm trying to see if we can get that kick-started. Water supply. Water supply is another one that, it always used to be that at every conference that I went to for water, they would say, we've got good news and bad news. Good news is that we're all going to be drinking treated wastewater here in a few years. Bad news is there's not going to be enough. But now, finally, people are starting to talk about potable reuse. I remember back a long time ago when San Diego tried to do potable reuse, and of course they got killed by the press because they called it toilet to tap. But there are a number of communities that are getting there. It's not 100% toilet to tap right now. It's going to be a mix, like most places in most rivers, but I think it's going to happen. Desalination is another one. We are financing right now 3 projects in Baja, and perhaps another one over here in Tamaulipas. We've worked with Brownsville, but we are looking to do more desal projects, and I think that that's a solution. I mean, right now, again, the city of Playa de Rosarito, Tijuana, Ensenada. I mean, they're getting all of their water from the Colorado River coming from the U.S. and it goes over, 4,000 feet up from below sea level to 4,000 feet above the sea.